Alright, so let's see what we broke on our trip here. Alright, so rack and pinion's leaking now. One of these tie rods is bent. I've lost both of the bushings. And here, those are collapsed on both sides. Then at some point I've torn my CV boot and I've got not only mud but axle grease into the alternator. I've lost the exhaust from there back. Broke my exhaust system, so I guess there's straight pipes now. In the rear here, I've gone ahead and torn out the trailing arm bushings. The rear shocks are basically, they've been needing to be replaced. Got this guy torn out here as well. Yeah, it looks like we've also got the differential mounts torn out there. And then I've been using these brake lines as limiting straps, so probably time to replace those as well. I don't know if you can see it, but we got some serious chopping on these rear tires. So these guys are basically smoked. Alright, so rear camber from those, rear camber is almost 3 degrees in the back from that trailing arm bushing being blown out. And then steering wheel's obviously knocked to the side. With the caster being smaller on the side, I believe that the lower control arm got bent backwards. So we're gonna have to replace that. I'm gonna try to at least get the steering wheel center again. Oh, you fucking dick. Loosen up, baby. This will get it to steer sort of straight, but yeah, we're definitely still pretty fucked up.
Okay, so where I'm at, I went ahead and did the damage inspection as far as the under vehicle, like the preliminary suspension analysis while I was at work today. So what I am contemplating, I need to take into consideration the actual total cost to repair versus the value of the vehicle. As a professional mechanic, the car's essentially mechanically totaled. But since it doesn't cost me anything to do the labor, essentially just in it for the parts. So in the rear end, I think the most critical is that I've destroyed the trailing arm bushings. So with the trailing arm bushing, it's preventing the suspension, essentially the trailing arm, from sitting straight. So it's able to travel side to side, so my camber and toe are both affected. For example, I have over half a degree of toe in on both sides. It's really chewed up the tires. So this is not the first set of trailing arms that I put into the vehicle. I purchased a set of the energy suspension polyurethane bushings. What I didn't consider with the energy suspension is, since my trailing arms are aftermarket, the actual center pin that attaches it to the chassis of the vehicle, that has to be original. It cannot be from an aftermarket bushing kit. So I'm going to be looking into like the True Heart, and then also ASR makes a polyurethane, or a spherical, a solid joint. So there's no bushing in there for me to tear, and that'll also help me have some articulation. So I believe that's what's destroying it. So in the rear, essentially, it's just replacing those trailing arm bushings, and then of course I need 4 new shocks. It was suggested using the QA1 springs for the rear in order to help with some of the sag. I believe all that sag and the inability to dampen is what cupped the inside of those tires. At least that's what makes sense to me. So in the front end, there's some noise. I'm going to go ahead and replace both of the lower control arms because the strut fork bushings are torn, and I believe that's causing some clunking on big bumps. The ball joints are both tight. I've got new TrueHeart ball joints that I replaced about halfway into my ownership of those upper control arms, and then I have the OEM ball joint, probably about 10,000 miles on them, so they're in good enough shape. I'm not worried about them failing. The rack and pinion's been leaking for a while, so I was planning on replacing the rack and pinion anyways, and then with the impact that happened in the front, I'm going to go ahead and do the rack and pinion and then both of the tie rods, so that way that system's complete. And that's the only leak that the CRV has, is the power steering fluid. Everything else is, I would say, acceptable for a car of 202,000, got 566 miles on her. So that basically takes care of the suspension. I don't foresee needing anything else there. I do the Napa lifetime warranty axles, so the hole in the axle boot's not a big deal for me to replace. I think my best time is like 14 minutes to replace an axle on one of these. I'm sure you can hear it from driving. I broke off the mid-pipe to the muffler, so the muffler and the mid-pipe are gone. That's an easy enough. I just need to order a new one. If you guys have a recommendation as far as the aftermarket ones, I see that there's OBX, Yonaka, and 1320 are all making aftermarket catbacks. But with this being a manual transmission, it sits at 3,000, 3,200 RPMs on the highway. And I'm definitely scared of the drone. I don't want this thing to drone. I'd rather put a $200, cheap Walker exhaust on it in order to have it be at least sort of quiet. Other than that, the thing runs all right. Could probably use a valve adjustment. I have had some issue with the air conditioning. It's probably coming up on time for a new pump. I enjoy the CRV community, and that's one of my big pushes in order to keep this thing going, is that way I can continue to make CRV content. I have a good time with it. Got the Toyota truck, and I've made a video with that, and I don't even get as many views, and I think the video's been up for 2 months now. Got more in one day on a CRV video, any of the CRV videos. So obviously my internet friends aren't interested in seeing that. So I'd like to keep this thing on the road. Essentially it's drivable. Come on, guys. It's drivable. I'm driving it right now. But it definitely is in need of some repair. So what do you guys think? Should I dump $2,000 into this thing? Have it'd basically be renewed, but that wouldn't really leave me any further modifications. Basically back to it just being in good shape. If you're in my shoes, what would you do?